All right, welcome back to another episode of Steeler Thoughts and Chief Feelings. I'm your co-host, Chris. I'm the philosophy professor and Steelers fan here.
And I'm Ajay. I'm the psychiatrist and Chiefs fan here. This is episode 38, we said, the Ron Parker, Kimball Anders episode for those that are Chiefs fans. Um, I'm going to skip comment of the week because I feel like we have a Super Bowl preview to do and we have limited time. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, this is like, every second here counts, just like in the Super Bowl. Um, I think, yeah, largely we're just gonna be focused on sort of making predictions about how the game might go. I have some sort of big picture questions for you, and maybe then some smaller picture questions. So let's just go for gold right off the bat. If this game goes well, what's the narrative you expected to have?
I think if this game, the ideal scenario for the Chiefs is that like Mahomes is on fire and they build a two possession lead earlier in this game and Jalen Hurts looks like Jalen Hurts has looked for the majority of this year where he's struggling with pressure, he's taking sacks and the basically Saquon Barkley is taken out of the game. Like they're in a position game script wise where they can't use him very much. The game is all on Jalen Hurts. I feel like if you told that to any Chiefs fan, they would be like, "That sounds great. That would more than likely lead to a victory." Now, the last time we tried to do that, Jalen Hurts was awesome, and we had to like they scored 35 points, and we had to win on a last second Bucker field goal. So it can happen, but I would take my chances in that kind of scenario.
Yeah. So you're thinking if it goes well, you like take them out of the way they want to play this game, which is probably a run first, dominate time of possession kind of game. Um, you is that would you prioritize that on defense, stopping the run? And if so, like what would you do to do that?
Yeah, I definitely think that is going to be priority number one. And I actually think they'll be able to do it too. Like, it depends on your definition of stop. Like, I don't think Saquon Barkley is going to have, I'll put it this way. I would guess he's probably going to have somewhere around like 80 yards, but I would say I think it's more likely that he has 40 than 120. I think it'll be like he will have his moments. You know, like James Cook, for as well as he played last game, he had 84 yards. Like, I feel like there will be moments where it feels like they're driving down the field because of Saquon Barkley, and it's going to be very frustrating. But I think on the whole, the Chiefs have been pretty good at limiting explosives, and that's the big deal to me. Is like if we could cut his runs of like 15 or more yards to like maximum like one or two, like I think we're in a really really good position.
Do you think that you have to devote extra players that would be covering, their talented receivers to stop the run effectively?
Theoretically, no. I mean, their offensive line's really good, but the one part of this game that I don't think has been talked about enough is that they both Cam Jurgens, their center, and Landon Dickerson, their left guard, were injured in the NFC Championship game. I think they're both going to play, but it sounds like they're not like 100%. And the reason why, one of the major reasons why we did really well stopping the 49ers run game in the Super Bowl last year was Mike Pennell up in the middle. I think Mike Pennell needs to have a big game. The guy I keep harping on, Leo Chanel, we always seem to deploy him in these run game. You know, he really helped us against the Ravens in week one this year. He played really well in both the last two Super Bowls. Actually, the last Eagles Super Bowl was his kind of coming out party. So he's a guy that I think will be very important. I think the Chiefs will try to one way that Leo Chanel will be really important is they try to use him to change the front at the last minute before the snap. So the Eagles will kind of have an idea of how they're going to block, and then they bring Chanel down as like a fifth guy and shift the line right before the snap. So the gaps are all different. Um, so I think that will be used strategically. And if they try to go smaller, I think what the Chiefs might do counterintuitively is instead of just going into nickel and taking Leo Chanel off the field, they might take a defensive lineman off the field and go 3-3 like that and have five defensive backs and keep their linebackers on the field because I think they like Tranquil, Bolton, and Chanel against the run.
Yeah. So so you think, yeah, using Chanel is kind of like the wild card there to bring them down at the last second can throw off their running schemes, and that might be the way that you don't have to devote an extra man to coverage. Do you think that? Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how much that actually plays out. Do you think so? How concerned are you about about the passing game, about their receivers winning one-on-one matchups if they have the opportunity?
I'm concerned about the receivers winning one on one. I'm honestly a little more concerned about Dallas Goddard because Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie have been playing really well. I counterintuitively, I kind of like Jalen Watson on AJ Brown better and Trent McDuffie with Devontae Smith because Trent McDuffie's one weakness is he can get bodied by bigger receivers, and Jalen Watson's just a bigger guy, and he's a lot better at the catch point than McDuffie is. So I, I mean, obviously they're really talented receivers, and I think they're going to get theirs as they did have done in the past. But I like that kind of combination there. I'm worried about Goddard in the middle of the field. I think someone like Justin Reed or Drew Tranquil is going to have a big game in taking him away because I think that will be an area where we could be problem have some problem. Saquon Barkley weirdly isn't great in the pass game. I don't know why that's just never
Yeah.
been a thing for him. I mean, he has some untimely drops in his career too, so I'm not as worried about that part of things. Although if he does catch the ball, he's always lethal in the open field, so you never know.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing where you probably, I don't know, do you want to have Reed like manned up with him just so that he can come take him out of the backfield? Like, he's so good at it. We've talked about this before. Like Reed could neutralize that potentially. Although with Saquon, you never know. I mean, he can make people miss. But, yeah. Okay. Uh, on offense, what are you thinking for the Chiefs? I mean, on offense, like if this game again goes well, what are the things that are working and what are they really? So you said Mahomes was cooking, right? So I imagine it's running through him.
Yeah, I think I don't expect us to have like an awesome game running the ball. I think it'll be a lot more like the Bills game where, I think Kareem Hunt's going to be the main guy, and I think he's probably going to be around 60, 65 yards, something like that. Pacheco, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to have completely come back from his injury this year. He just doesn't look like he did before he got hurt early this year in week two. So I do think it's going to be a lot more Kareem Hunt. I don't think the run game is going to, because if you remember, like last time we played the Eagles, we went big and started running in the second half, and that really opened things up for
Yeah.
our offense. And I don't know that we're going to have that kind of capability this year. It would be awesome. You know that Reed is going to have some like run concepts that he hasn't shown all year. We saw that a little bit again in the Bills game. But I think it's going to be Mahomes with his legs. So the offensive line has to really hold up. And I think number one is that the offensive line will hold up to the point that the Eagles can't create constant pressure with four. If that happens, you really feel good for the Chiefs offense. And I think who's probably going to win the most is I think this is another Kelsey game. I like the matchup in the middle of the field way more than I do on the boundary. And for that reason, and because they play a lot of zone, the other kind of sneaky guy who I guess isn't as sneaky after the AFC title game is Juju. I think Juju Smith-Schuster's and then behind him maybe Noah Gray and maybe Justin Watson. Like those are the guys that kind of get open in zone across the middle, and that's what the Eagles do. They don't man you up very much. Andy Reid seems to somehow be able to predict when they're going to man us up and run cool plays like corn dog, but in the red zone and stuff like that. But I think I envision this as like Kelsey has a big day. The wide receivers are a little more quiet, kind of like the Texans game. Worthy will still have something because they're always scheming stuff up from Worthy on big situations. But I like Kelsey. I like Juju to have a surprisingly good day. And somebody like Noah Gray or Justin Watson's going to have a couple catches too.
Yeah. So you mentioned Mahomes with his legs making a difference. Like my maybe naive impression would have been that if that's what's getting you going, that seems like the offense must be having trouble basically. Like he does that when it's desperate or when like they really need a play, right? And I guess you always really need a play in the Super Bowl, but you would hope that like stuff is schemed to get open or at least stuff's working better than it would be if he had to be making plays with his legs.
I just feel like the chance that like Vic Fangio's defenses are always tough for us. I think if we're good, it's going to be because Mahomes was super, like really, really good. I don't think it's going to be like look easy, even if we put up like, 30 something. Although some might argue that the second half of the Super Bowl against the Eagles last time looked a little easy, but again, I think the run game kind of opened things up. I think it will always look hard. It'll just be like, wow, look what Mahomes is doing. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever be like, wow, this is just too easy for them. So in that situation, I do think he's going to be running on big downs. I think that he's going to be throwing into some tight windows because the Eagles don't give you big windows. This is going to be a kind of like reminder to people like, oh, Patrick Mahomes is really good. It's just that he dials things down a little bit when it's not as high stakes of a game.
Yeah, you mentioned Fangio's defense, and I think Warren Sharp had some stat about how the Chiefs struggle more in the red zone against them than against other teams. Um, I mean, I don't know how huge the body of statistics is there, but does that concern you? And is that a place where you could see him making some plays with his legs that, when things are, stuff isn't working that they plan to work?
Yeah, I think I'll put it this way, like if we're to the level where we're thinking about like red zone offense and defense, I'll be pretty happy because
Okay. Yeah.
I think that, the Andy Reid is going to have everything in the bag. If you can guarantee me that we're going to be getting to the red zone a lot, I'm not too concerned. It is true. Fangio does give us a lot of trouble in the red zone. That is true, but I mean the Super Bowl game plan is going to be a different animal, so I think as long as we can block their front four, I think that this game, I mean, it looks really good from a Chiefs offense perspective.
Okay. Um, so I'm tempted to turn then to say, so I said the first question was, if this goes well, how does it go? If this goes badly, how does it go? And maybe it starts with the not blocking the front four well.
Yeah, I think if it goes badly, it's like the Bucks Super Bowl. It's like the Eagles front four just runs roughshod over our offensive line. We don't have the time to get anything going. Saquon Barkley breaks a couple long ones, and suddenly, like our defense is reeling. I think it would be something like that. The other part of this, it's kind of a like strength versus strength in that Vic Fangio very much wants teams to like methodically and slowly move the ball down the field. Well, that's what the Chiefs have been doing all year. Like that's what we're good at. But we do it with like the short passing game and yards after the catch, and the Eagles are awesome tacklers, they're defensive backs. So something's going to have to give there. We run a lot of wide receiver screens and things like that, and the Eagles have been really good against that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
on
That'll
one
be
hand,
cool with
like,
this. Go ahead, sorry.
well, on one hand, it's like we are fine playing the way they want us to play, but they're also really good at defending that too. So we'll kind of see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, this will be like, I mean, Reed is so good at giving people to get yards after catch in those kinds of situations. So it does feel like it's a fun matchup to be watching in that regard, strength against strength there. Um, okay, so on the offensive side, the Eagles dominate the line of scrimmage and make it really hard to get anything going in the passing game. Tackle the receivers without much yards after catch. What about on the defensive side? Like, how Saquon Barkley just breaks a few, and then suddenly it's like they can lean on the run game whenever they have the ball, and you are struggling to get off the field. Is that the worry?
Yeah, I think Saquon breaks a few explosives because I'm honestly not worried about like the constant short running because I think if they keep leaning on the run game and we don't give up explosives, they're going to eventually get in some third and longs and all, and I would take our chances with that. But if he's ripping off like 20-yard runs, 30-yard runs, has a 60+ yard touchdown, like then we're really in trouble. If it's like the Commanders game.
So you got like That makes it. I mean, it's always super tense early in the game in the Super Bowl, but like this sounds like a recipe to make it very, very like things have to go one way for this to go well, and if they don't go that way, then this can go very badly. So this is well,
Yeah, we'll be
high
looking.
stakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think every bit of analysis in the first several minutes will be on line play. Like, how are the respective lines playing? Like, who's moving who? Like that'll be a really big deal to get an idea at the start.
Yeah. Um, okay. So we've got the narrative if it goes well, the narrative or like the plausible narrative if it goes well and badly. Is there one where you see this being like a it seems to me like the bad narrative, Bucks style Super Bowl is like a Eagles blowout. The good narrative is a fairly comfortable Chiefs win. Is that right? I mean, like how? I guess I'm getting closer to the sort of prediction question here.
Yeah, I think the good narrative is like, a two possession win. Like I think the Eagles offense is just unless or their defense, unless they just have a really bad day, I don't see us like beating them for long touchdowns. It can happen. Like Andy Reid can scheme something up. We have Xavier Worthy, uh it's definitely possible, but I don't think we're gonna this isn't like a 500-yard passing day for Mahomes, right? Like I would be really, I mean, that would be amazing. Let's hope
Yeah.
will that into existence, but I'd be really surprised. Like to me, it's like a surgical, methodical, kind of like what Mahomes was doing against the Bills. Just although that was even more yards per attempt than I think he's going to get in this game. I think this will be I think he will look really good and he will like be very impressive and win Super Bowl MVP, but I don't think he will have these like chunk plays. But there is potential in that middle of the field. And we talked about their short tackling. Like, that's why I really feel like that intermediate area is going to be what wins the game for the Chiefs, assuming they can block. Because Travis Kelce, Juju getting open in that kind of like, 8 to 15 yard area and getting passes in that range. And again, Noah Gray, Justin Watson, these guys can do that. Find the soft spots in the zone. Mahomes just needs a little bit of time to find them. And that's where I think, when the offense looks really good, that's why it'll look good. They're getting these kind of 12, 15-yard chunks in the passing game.
Yeah, like over the middle of the field. This is how I think of this is how I remember the Patriots offense when they were really good. It was just like a ton of well, when they had Randy Moss there was that cheat code, but otherwise it was like always chunks in the middle of the field that they would eat you up in. But since I mean that's where you can find holes in zone often, so that's if the Eagles play a lot of zone, you would expect that maybe. So aside from I guess maybe you've answered this question already. I was going to ask aside from Mahomes or Kelsey on offense, who would it be? But maybe it's Juju that could have the sort of X factor role. Is that
Yeah, I
right?
think, yeah. I mean, if we like really want an X factor, I think number one to me would be our left guard, Mike Caliendo. If Mike
Mm.
Caliendo has, because he's the worst offensive lineman we have on the field, right? But you could make a lot of, Trey Smith, our right guard, is going to be the one who's probably matched up most against Jalen Carter, and that's going to be a really important matchup. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough. They're the hope is that if Trey Smith could handle Jalen Carter one on one, then Caliendo could get help from Creed Humphrey, the center, and that would make me feel a lot better. Joe Tooney just always seems like he somehow figures it out. It's not going to look pretty, but he'll figure it out. And Jawan Taylor has he's quietly played really good in all the important moments while he's been a Chief, but he just gets so much crap for all the alignment and false start penalties. But he's just solid. Like he's a good right tackle to have in these moments. I'm not worried about him.
Yeah. Um, okay. And then the defensive X factor is it Leo? um,
Yeah, I just feel like if Leo Chanel, like the big Leo Chanel was awesome when we played him last time, and so is Willie Gay, who we don't have anymore. But that to me the big one is Leo. If Leo plays really well, and it'll be those kind of middle guys, Leo Chanel, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed. If those guys like are showing up and having big games, like I really like the chances for our defense.
yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to hold off on asking like the your official prediction, I guess maybe till the end here. But what are the I don't like this term, but I'm going to use it. What are the vibes amongst Chiefs fans heading into the game here? Like, are they optimistic?
I think so. I think Chiefs fans are pretty optimistic. The kind of fear is just the if the defensive line can, wreck the game from the Eagles standpoint. I and the other side, the fear is Saquon Barkley. But I think Chiefs fans are pretty confident. We've seen a lot with this team, and we've got a lot of examples now about how they really show up in the big games, and I think we're expecting the Chiefs to show up again. Spags has been on his game with his stuff for years now. Andy Reid's been on his game with his play calling. So, and Patrick Mahomes, just like the way he plays in third and fourth quarters, especially of Super Bowls, like it's just, even when he's had struggles, the Bucks game was, a tough overall one, but otherwise, like one stat that I thought was crazy was in the Mahomes has played in four Super Bowls and he has never been leading at halftime and he's won three of them.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's reason to think that like it doesn't hinge as much as you might have thought on the early game script or exactly what happens, or like if even if Barkley, breaks one or two in the first half, you know, Mahomes has this track record of really, really turning it on in the second halves of Super Bowls, so it might not matter as much, I think.
yeah, I certainly don't think like we have to build a big lead. I think that would just, I mean, it would if we built a big lead, I would be much more comfortable than I normally would playing any team, just because I don't really trust the Eagles to come back, and that's the big like I think when you're looking at the relative things for both of these teams, like you're never worried about the Chiefs until very like unless are getting blown out. But the Eagles, like if the Eagles are down 14, I feel like as a Chiefs fan, I would be like, oh, like I feel like we might be able to now, like we've talked about in the Bills game last podcast. The Chiefs are sometimes good for one stupid error that just brings the other team back into the game. So you want to be cognizant of that. But otherwise, if we get up a couple scores, man, I like our chances.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. That's a good reason to just in a vacuum prefer the Chiefs in this game, right? Because there are fewer circumstances in which you get worried for them, right? You get worried for the Eagles if they're down 14 even in like the second quarter, right? Yeah. Um, good. Do you,
The
yeah,
the
go ahead.
other thing that I forgot to mention was the one reason why Travis Kelsey I think is so important is that the what is his name? I always confuse the Georgia players on the Eagles, but I think it's Nakobe Dean, right? Yeah, Nakobe Dean, the linebacker, is out. I confuse him with the linebacker edge Nolan Smith. They're both from Georgia. But Nakobe Dean got hurt in the Packers game, and his backup, whose name escapes me, was on the 49ers last year, and Travis Kelsey absolutely torched him in the second half. So if that's another reason why now Vic Fangio knows that, so I'm sure he's going to try to scheme up some ways to prevent that from happening. But it's another reason why I really like the middle of the field. The corners, they've they've got a slot corner, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell, their other outside corner, two rookies that are awesome. Darius Slay is a great corner. He's maybe not what he was like 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still not somebody I would throw at.
Mhm.
So I feel like it's going to be that middle of the field and safeties, and it's kind of what we thought about the Texans game going in, and then Travis Kelsey had 117 yards and a touchdown. So I think
Mhm.
it's going to be like that kind of. I wouldn't be surprised if like Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins are kind of quiet. Somehow they still manage to get Xavier Worthy involved at some way, but I think it'll be the middle of the field guys, and I mean, they really trust Juju. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about this as much in our last podcast because I hadn't done the film review, but like after reviewing the film, like Juju was awesome against the Bills. Like awesome like 2022 Juju. This was the guy that I wanted to be our number one wide receiver. Awesome. Like he was really good. I did not know that was still there. You watch that tape and you're like, I can't believe a 4-13 team cut him this year. Like it's insane. He was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to see Juju like be as good as he was early in his career, right? Before he's sort of his body just got so beat up. But it seems like he does have that extra level still. That sort of the playoff gear that like Mahomes and Kelsey and whatnot have.
Somebody, one Chiefs. Oh God, I'm gonna forget who it was. I think it was Christian Gumminger. Some chief reporter brought up the fact that like the Chiefs like game sealing touch play against the Bills was done by a guy who was cut by the Broncos. That's Samaje Perine, cut by the Broncos at to start the year. Their like most important receiver, maybe even their leading receiver in that game, was a guy who was cut by the Patriots, 4-13. And then their leading rusher was a running back who didn't even get asked to come to a training camp and was on his couch week 3 when the Chiefs decided to sign him in Kareem Hunt. Like those were like 3 of the most important players in the AFC Championship game for the Chiefs. So I feel like that says a lot about Brett Veach and picking up guys. It says a lot about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and elevating guys. Like
Yeah.
it's really been impressive to see like who is contributing on this team.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. Well, I might transition unless there's more like analysis questions. I want to like get a sense for how you're thinking about like what you're feeling about the game, like how nervous you are. And in particular, like are you thinking past it to like the victory if it's a victory, like how that bears on the Chiefs as an all-time dynasty or anything like, are you trying to just like not see past the game yet?
I mean, I'm definitely thinking past it at times. I don't want to act like I'm like that confident that we're going to win, but I think the reason why is because like throughout my entire life, like the standard has been 4 Super Bowls in 6 years by the 1970s Steelers. And like this is what I didn't even realize it until a couple of days ago. Like this would be 4 Super Bowls in 6 years by the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So that to me has been like the pinnacle always of like so that would be really cool to match it. And then to have that matched and a three-peat at the same time, like that, which nobody's ever done, like that's pretty crazy. And I do think that, it's kind of cliche. We say this about all athletes, but the Chiefs like really have been thinking about this. This has been the goal. This has always been the goal from the moment they won the Super Bowl against the 49ers. They were thinking about this. So I think that there is a little bit of a finish line element to this for the Chiefs in the sense that I don't know that they're thinking about next year in the way that they have been, and they especially were last year. I think they're just like, we have to do this. Um, it would be crazy. I think people are a little hyperbolic when they're like, well, that would make Mahomes' resume like clearly better than Brady's. Like, I know I think it would be like I would think he's better than Brady, but I already do. But I don't know that I would just be like, well, that's definitive. It's pretty good though. Like I feel like I don't think any Patriots fan could be like, well, we can't have the Mahomes Brady discussion yet if they win
Yeah.
this Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it certainly like a legitimate discussion from anyone's perspective. I think that's fair. Are you, sorry, my dog is snoring again. Uh, Overall emotions about the game, is it like excitement or anxiety or something else?
I think it's a mixture. uh, I I mean I don't. I like go through the possible with reading everything, going through possibilities and everything. I just don't feel like we're going to lose this game. I mean, I'm scared about it, but like, I don't know that I'm even as scared as I was with the Bills game. Like, I was,
Yeah.
the Bills game, I was just like, although to be fair, like we're talking on a Friday. I know I texted you the Friday before the Bills game, and I'd gotten a lot more confident at that point. So maybe this is just like we're just hitting me at a different part of the progression. And if we had talked on Tuesday, I would have been more nervous. I don't
Yeah, we
know.
should we should like graph confidence throughout the weeks and see what happens if there's like a trend here. Yeah.
But I mean, the Eagles are really good and they're really but they're, I don't know that I'm surprised at how many people are acting like this is like the best. Like Bill Barnwell said, this is the best team the Chiefs have played in the Super Bowl ever, and I'm like, I don't, I don't know that that's true. Like,
Mm.
I mean, that first 49ers team especially was like very stacked and like, they were playing extremely well. I actually that's the biggest parallel to me is the 2019 49ers. And we also have the theory that I brought up in the offseason that like when teams look really, really good and blow out a team in a playoff game, they seem to lose the next round. And the Eagles put up what, like 55 or something?
Yeah, 55 in the NFC Championship. Yeah.
I saw Scott Kazmir tweeted that teams that score 39 or more points in the NFC Championship are 3-6 in Super Bowls. So,
There,
uh,
that's a good
yeah,
sign.
I remember the Giants beating the Vikings 41 nothing in the NFC Championship game and then getting blasted by Ray Lewis's Ravens in the
Yeah.
next in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I one of the things that I was thinking for a long time was that I don't know. I'm trying to think of where I'm going to go with this prediction, but just a little part of me, I think I'm going to lean on this. The Chiefs have given everyone so many exciting Super Bowls. I just feel like this one might not be that exciting. Like, I don't think it's going to be, even how I think it'll be like the 49ers game last year where if you'll remember the first like 2.5 quarters weren't like thrilling for a neutral viewer.
Mhm.
I feel like this game might be like that, but the Chiefs might be able to get enough ahead that it never gets to like, you know, I think it'll probably be a one possession game because it look like they're always one possession games with this team. But I feel like I'm more expecting it to be like the Eagles have the ball late in a two possession game and make it a one possession game rather than it being like a tie game and the Chiefs go down to win.
And then
That's
the
the
Chiefs win it just by holding the ball on offense or something like that.
Yeah, that's or maybe like the Eagles will get the ball down seven with like 15 seconds left and no timeouts or something. Like,
Yeah.
I I don't know why, but that's the impression that I get is that it just doesn't I don't think the Eagles are very exciting if Saquon Barkley isn't exciting. And the Chiefs are not that exciting this year, period. That's just not unless you just like enjoy Mahomes' craft, which I do. But it's not like the Chiefs are like explode. I don't think a neutral fan is going to be like, this isn't like going to be like the Bills game or like the 13 seconds game or one of those. I think it'll be more like the Chiefs Bengals AFC Championship game. It was like 23-20 and it was kind of ugly and it was tense. But imagine that game, but if it ends like 23-17 and like it was like the Bengals had to score late to make it 23-7. I just that's the impression I'm getting of this game, but maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself into the prediction. Like,
Yeah. Well, we could do that, but maybe we could take a break if in a little bit here, and then come back into the predictions. But what else? What else about this game deserves our? I mean, like, there's so much that I want to ask that maybe like I don't know. It's like a gamble, like because I'm thinking like if they win, like let's have the Mahomes Brady discussion, for example. Uh, but I feel like we might just be able to have that discussion afterward. I guess that does in some sense. I mean, even without a win, like this is an incredible amount of Super Bowls in a short amount of time, so we can still have that discussion. But do you expect anything unexpected? Here's one. Here's another thing to ask about the game. Do you expect anything unexpected from Spagnolo? Like, is something like shouldn't we expect something unexpected from him at this point?
yeah, I mean there are going to be some crazy blitzes. Now the Eagles offensive line is really good and their offensive line coach is really good. So, but they don't have Jason Kelsey calling out the protections anymore, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I don't think Jalen Hurts has like acquitted himself as like a great protection call. I honestly don't even know if it Cam Jurgens or Jalen Hurts calls out the protections now.
Mhm.
So I expect there to be some situations where Spagnuolo is able to get some guys free, and Jalen Hurts has been, I think, the worst quarterback in the league when pressured. So I do think there. I just think if we can get them into when they need to pass the ball, Spagnuolo is going to look like a maniac. Like the
Mhm.
defense is going to start looking like the impenetrable if they have to throw the ball a lot. I think Jalen Hurts will still get his. He's talented, and I still remember the bomb he threw to AJ Brown for a touchdown over Trent McDuffie. Like he'll have some moments, but I think all in all, once we get to the second half, especially if the Chiefs have a lead, suddenly it'll feel like Spagnuolo's shutting the door.
Yeah, that's it's a compelling argument to me. I think that you would expect him to like go into his bag of tricks in the second half if they have a lead, and that's gonna be tough to overcome for the Eagles, I think. All right, so should we take a break and then come back and do predictions?
All right, sounds good.
Well, we're back, and we are about to make our predictions. Figured I'll go first because I have more ignorance, less knowledge about this game, and I'll give Ajay a little bit of time to decide on which exact narrative he wants to pick for the game. But I was thinking, so it feels like, right. I mean, maybe this is right. If the Eagles win, it's going to be something like 27-23, where they were really kind of in control most of the time, and Mahomes had to, pull some rabbits out of hats and made it interesting at the end. Um, but I don't. It's hard for me to see that. I think the Chiefs win this, and I think they win it. Dare I say comfortably? Like I think it's like 29. 29 would be a fun score to get to. 29 to like 17 or 28-17, something. I gotta pick a number. I'll go 29-17. But I
God, I
think
would
it's
love that.
it's like the Eagles just are not, they're not up for it because they get down by too many scores and they can't catch up. That's sort of how I think. I would love it to be like a really like another like Chiefs Bills game because that game was just so objectively fun to watch. And when it's in the Super Bowl, it's even more fun when it's like a close, tense one. But I don't know if it will be.
It's fun when it's over and you've won. That's true.
Yeah.
In the thick of things, it can be quite.
Yeah, it is not. It is. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, like how unpleasant it is when you're like trying to go on a game-winning drive or something like that, right? I mean, there's hope, but there's so much like your stomach is in knots, and you're like, oh my God, like everything is like so magnified. Um, but then afterward, if it
Especially
turns
in this
out
game,
well,
it's just like, yeah, I mean, the one, because like the past ones, like the first Super Bowl we won, I don't know that I was able to properly enjoy it because I was just like so beaten down. Like, it's hard to imagine, but with like that Wasp play, I think happened with like 6:40 or something to go in the game, or it was somewhere between 6 and 8 minutes to go in the game. In my head, it's something like that, but I could be a little off. Definitely under 8 minutes. I feel like I would say that with certainty. And up until that point, like we're down 20-10. The touchdown we scored was in the first quarter. It just felt like Mahomes had thrown two picks. Like it was just like you didn't feel. I wasn't even looking at the screen during the Wasp play because it was third and a lot. It was and like and so I was literally just like I like, and then I heard Joe Buck like get excited, but it was hard to like get yourself ramped up because even when we came down and scored and made it 20-17, it was like if they score, this is probably over. Like it's too late. Like I had to like ramp my energy up. Like it was hard. Like when I go back and watch it, I'm just like, I really should have enjoyed this way more in the moment. But I
but
mean,
it's hard. I like the. I think maybe, but I wonder too because like when the Steelers won their first Super Bowl, the first one that I saw in 2005, I remember. I would say the experience was fairly similar. It was like it was not the emotional like overjoyed feeling that I expected it to be. It's like, well, I guess we won. But the second time it was amazing, right? And
yeah.
the game narrative was entirely different. So like it's hard to know what changed there. Lots of things changed there. What was the important change? I don't know. But I think I've had similar feelings to you there. That the first one is like hard to appreciate.
Yeah, and I think the way it happened too was so Like I was still pessimistic. Even when we had like taken the lead, it was like, God, they're gonna get the ball back. That was when it started getting exciting to me, was when we like stopped them on fourth down, then we got the ball back, and then Damian Williams running down the sideline was like, oh my God, like we're actually gonna win this. Like
Yeah.
we were up in the Super Bowl and I wasn't really thinking we were gonna win. And then we scored to go up 31-20, and it was like, oh, like they can't do this. Like it's over.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was. I just feel like I didn't ramp up. Like it's stupid to think about it now, but it's like when you have Patrick Mahomes, when you come within a score, you should start getting excited, you know. But we were up four, and I was still like, I don't know, like 'cause the game had
Yeah.
been such a slog.
Yeah.
But the Eagles game was really exciting. I think it was just a little bit of a damper that like because Greg Olson absolutely like torched the holding call on live TV, and so
Yeah.
you kind of knew at that moment like this is going to be part of the narrative of this game. Unfortunately, it's and who knew how far it was going to go, but at that point.
Gosh, that really started something.
Yeah. And then but the 49ers this last year's Super Bowl was just all amazing. Like to win in overtime on a game-winning touchdown like that there was just nothing but exciting. And honestly, the most exciting play besides the actual touchdown that won was in regulation, we were down 22-19. There wasn't very much time left, and they run like a mesh route, and Travis Kelsey catches it like full speed. And for a moment, I thought he was going to score and we are going to win in regulation. Like, and then we had the one pass to Kelsey where he tried like a kind of back shoulder throw and couldn't complete it. So there was that little bit where it was like, are we going to actually win this in regulation? And then we ran out of time, so we had to kick a field goal. That was just all excitement. But like this Bills game, like that was just nerve wracking. Like I was, because I think that the one that made that worse was like it really felt like if we hadn't fumbled that exchange, we would have like our offense was just rearing to go. Like I feel like we could have in another world like blown them out. Definitely for as close of a game as that was, it's weird to say, but I think like you play that game 10 times and we win like seven. You know, I really felt but so to be playing that way and to be tied that late in the game, it was just like I remember it was. I'm trying to remember exactly what point. Our daughter had had a lot of trouble sleeping that night, so my wife came out, and I was just like, like I didn't even have words to say to her. Like I was just watching the game, and I was like, oh my God. But yeah, those games are just so intense, and I I guess I should give my prediction instead of talking about all my intense experiences. But
I mean, that's what I want to happen again, and I guess I feel bad wanting that to happen to you here, but I want that to happen in this game. I just don't think I
I
want it.
mean, I wouldn't mind it as long as we win. Like those intense wins are amazing. But as someone who roots for a team that's always in one score games, I think people shouldn't underappreciate the blowout either. Like, it's kind of nice to win and to be comfortable and relaxed a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, And we have not experienced that in the Super Bowl, which is like, even though we beat the 49ers by 11 officially, like that game was as intense as any game gets. I do feel like I feel stupid, but I am going along with what you're saying. Like afterward, if we're talking, doing this podcast after the game, and it's just like, why didn't we realize that if Patrick Mahomes is in a Super Bowl, it's going to be a crazy game? Like, but I don't know. It just, I do feel like the couple things. One is the interior line of the Eagles being injured. Two is that Spagnuolo has never let a running back destroy his defense. Never, ever. Like that's just not been the problem for the Chiefs ever. If it were any running back, it would be this one. Like he's playing really, really well.
I
But
mean, it could have been James Cook, right? But it wasn't. So,
yeah, and even last year when we played the Bills, their run game was really good in the first half, and it looked like they were going to keep up with us or beat us because of the run game. And then suddenly in the second half, it wasn't. Like, and we've shut down the Ravens and the 49ers run games, who are both supposed to run all over us in the playoffs last year, and neither could. Now, the defense this year, admittedly, isn't quite as good as it was last year. But I think Saquon will have great plays. Like I said, I think of him as being. I would definitely. I think his over under is 119 yards or something. I definitely take the under on that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up with like 13 runs for 45 yards. I'm not going to predict that, but I think what he'll actually have is like 19 for 86 or something. It'll be something like that. But I wouldn't be shocked if we really stuff him. I think that's going to be a huge focus, and I think that Spags hasn't let a running back beat him, and I just don't think Jalen Hurts isn't playing as well as he did 2 years ago. And that was the game of Jalen Hurts' life against us, and our defense was definitely worse then than it is now. Our defense was more vanilla then than it was now. If you remember, like Trent McDuffie was a rookie. Jalen Watson was a rookie. Justin Reed was in his first season on the defense. We didn't have Drew Tranquil at that point. Uh, Joshua Williams was also a rookie and playing. Leo Chanel was a rookie. Willie Gay was no, Willie Gay was a third year player. But like it was a different, that was Nick Bolton's second year, I think. So yeah, it's just a different defense. Like this is a way wilier defense. This is a much more creative in its coverages. I don't think Jalen Hurts. This is not the same schematically. This isn't the same team that Jalen Hurts played last time. So if Barkley's not able to beat us, I'd be really surprised if we lost this game. On the other hand, on the other side of the ball, the offensive line always figures it out in these games except the Bucks Super Bowl. And that was the year that everyone was hurt. Like the Eagles were supposed to do this to us in 2022 and we didn't allow any sacks. And the offensive line bullied them in the run game. I think that this team comes together at the important times. I think Kelsey will have a really big game. He's not retiring, but it's not like a swan song, but he's going to have a really big game. I think we'll have some clutch plays from Juju, who also was pretty clutch in the Super Bowl against the Eagles last time. I think I'm going to settle on, I think, I think game script wise, the Chiefs aren't going to get to an early double score lead as much as I'd like them to. I think it's going to be like the Eagles will probably get a touchdown on their first drive and the Chiefs will too. And it'll be kind of like a nervy game. I don't think it'll look that great early on from either team. I think the opening scripts might look good and then they're trying to settle in and it might be something like 7-7, 10-7, 10-10 at halftime. And I think the second half is when the Chiefs just start like squeezing that game. I think the Eagles suddenly are not able to move the ball as much. The Chiefs jump out to a little bit of a lead. And I'm going to say 27-20 as the final score. But I think, it'll be something where it's like kind of back and forth, but it's like 20-13 late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs get that hammer touchdown to make it 27-13, and the game's essentially over there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you start breathing easily.
A little more easily, but eh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's and the other thing that's underrated, someone was bringing it up on my Twitter feed. I apologize, I don't know who, but it was that long halftime is really good for schemers like Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. The adjustments at a halftime have always been really good in Kansas City, and I think that will be the case this time too. But I wouldn't be surprised if people think the first half's kind of boring through the third quarter, actually, which is what everyone thought about the 49ers game too. You just forget because the fourth quarter and overtime were crazy. But
Thrilling.
yeah, so, but unfortunately, I think it might not ever get that exciting from a who's going to win standpoint because I think as the Chiefs get going, they're going to get going on both sides of the ball and kind of exert control over this one.
Yeah. Well, all season long, I feel like we've been saying, like, why pick against the Chiefs? They have not given you reason to pick against them. Why would it change now, right? We're both
Yeah.
so that seems reasonable. Well, uh, anything else that we should predict about this one? I mean, I guess we could have done some of the prop bets or something like that. I don't know how long is the national anthem gonna last?
Dude, the over under is apparently crazy this year. I saw someone was saying it was 120.5 seconds. I would go under on that, like very hard under.
It's just, yeah, it's like almost as many rushing yards as they're predicting Barkley to have under. Um, good. Yeah. Well, we'll plan to do a recap episode on Monday, which will either be very fun or very not fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
that could be terrible.
yeah, right. So yeah, we'll see about that. But yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys the game, and we'll be back to analyze it.
Thanks for following along, everyone. I guess I should have said we just crossed a year of the podcast back on like January 22nd or so.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
we thanks for those that have followed along for a year, and we got to see one Chiefs Super Bowl win, and hopefully we get to see another one.
yeah. I mean, this is yeah, right. This podcast is really like a good thing for Chiefs fans so far, right? Um, Something good is happening. Okay, well, enjoy the game.
All right.
I hope you do. And
Until next time.
talk Monday.